but I heard nothing except the ticking of the clock and the hiss of the north wind. An overwhelming terror seized me. The clock struck 11. Oh no. (1831). Théophile Gautier is 20 years old, with a blazing imagination. He writes his first fantastic tale and publishes it in a Parisian magazine. He calls it The Coffee Pot. Who is Théophile Gautier? A young bohemian with a sharp tongue and eyes wide open to mystery. Poet, failed painter, art critic, and tireless traveler. Born in Tarbes, in the south of France, but with a mind that roams everywhere. Among Egyptian ruins, crowded theaters, dreams of marble and silk. Gautier writes to evoke, to paint with words, to give shape to the invisible. He loves beauty in all its forms, but within his pages, there always lurks a shadow. The Coffee Pot is a nocturnal dance, a night of wind and fire, where portraits step down from their frames and objects come to life. A light and unsettling tale. Sensual and melancholic. A dream, or perhaps a memory that refuses to die. Last year I was invited, along with two fellow studio companions, Arrigo Cohic and Pedrino Bornioli, to spend a few days on an estate lost deep in the heart of Normandy. The weather, which at our departure had promised to be splendid, saw fit to worsen all of a sudden. So much rain fell that the sunken paths where we marched resembled the bed of a torrent. We sank into the mud almost up to our knees. A thick layer of sticky, heavy soil clung to the soles of our boots, and its weight slowed our pace so much that we reached our destination an hour after sunset. We were exhausted, so our host, seeing the effort we made to stifle our yawns and keep our eyes open, had us led to our respective rooms right after dinner. Mine was large. The moment I entered, I felt a feverish shiver, as if I were stepping into a new world. Indeed, one might have believed they had returned to the days of the Régence, seeing Boucher's overdoor paintings of the Four Seasons, the furniture overloaded with the worst kind of rocaille, the massive mirror over doors. Nothing was out of place. The dressing table, covered with boxes for combs and powder puffs, looked as though it had been used just the night before. 2 or 3 iridescent dresses, a fan scattered with silver sequins cluttered the well-polished parquet floor, and, to my great surprise, a tortoise-shell snuff box, left open on the mantelpiece, was still full of fresh tobacco. I only noticed all this after the servant, having placed the candlestick on the nightstand, had wished me good night. I confess, I began to tremble like a leaf. I undressed quickly, lay down, and to put an end to those foolish fears, I shut my eyes tightly and turned towards the wall. The blazing fire cast reddish glows across the room, so that one could make out the figures in the tapestry and the faces of the smoke-darkened portraits hanging on the wall. They were the ancestors of our host, knights clad in armor, counselors with wigs, and beautiful ladies with rouged cheeks and hair powdered white, each holding a rose in her hand. Suddenly the fire took on a strange activity. A livid light filled the room, and I saw clearly that what I had believed to be mere paintings was, in fact, reality. The pupils of those framed beings moved and sparkled. Their lips opened and closed like the mouths of people speaking, but I heard nothing except the ticking of the clock and the hiss of the north wind. An overwhelming terror seized me. The hair stood up on my forehead, my teeth chattered until they nearly broke, and a cold sweat drenched me. The clock struck 11. The last vibration lingered for a long time, and when it had completely faded, oh no, I hardly dare say what happened next. No one would believe me. I would be taken for mad. The candles lit themselves. The bellows, without any visible hand to set them in motion, began to blow on the fire with the rasping sound of an old asthmatic, while the tongs stirred the embers and the shovel raised the ashes. Then a coffee pot jumped down from the table where it had been resting and, limping, made its way toward the hearth, where it settled among the coals. Moments later, the armchairs began to stir, and moving their twisted little legs in a most surprising way, came to arrange themselves around the fireplace. I didn't know what to think, but what remained for me to see was even more extraordinary. One of the portraits, the oldest, that of a fat, ruddy man with a gray beard who resembled my idea of old Sir John Falstaff, pushed his grinning head out from the frame and, after great effort, having squeezed his belly through the narrow wooden borders, landed heavily on the floor. Catching his breath, he pulled a tiny key from his waistcoat pocket. He blew on it to make sure the keyhole was clean, then applied it to each of the paintings, one after the other. And all the frames widened, allowing the figures they contained to step out comfortably. Chubby little abbots, dry and yellowish stepmothers, grave-looking magistrates in long black robes, dandies in silk stockings and plum-colored culottes, with the tips of their swords raised high. These worthy characters took their places. The coffee pot hopped lightly onto the table. They drank coffee from white and blue Japanese cups, which had spontaneously arrived from a secretaire, each with a lump of sugar and a silver teaspoon. When the coffee was finished, cups, coffee pot, and spoons all disappeared at once, and the conversation began, the strangest I had ever heard. No one looked at another while speaking. Everyone kept their eyes fixed on the clock. I too couldn't take my gaze off the hand, which crept towards midnight with imperceptible steps. Finally, midnight struck. A voice whose tone matched exactly that of the clock was heard and said, "The time has come. It is time to dance." The entire assembly stood up. The armchairs withdrew on their own. Then each cavalier took the hand of a lady, and the same voice added, "Come on, gentlemen of the orchestra, begin." I forgot to mention that the subject of the tapestry depicted, on one side, an Italian concert, and on the other, a stag hunt, with many pages blowing their horns. The conductor raised his baton, and a lively, dancing harmony burst forth from both ends of the hall. At first, they danced the minuet, but the rapid notes of the performance did not suit the solemn bows, so each couple, after just a few minutes, began to spin like German tops. The silk skirts of the ladies, crumpled in that whirlwind, produced peculiar sounds. It was like the fluttering of wings from a flock of pigeons. The wind that slipped underneath billowed them out so much that they seemed like swinging bells. The bow of the virtuosos swept over the strings so quickly that electric sparks seemed to fly. The flutists' fingers rose and fell as if they were liquid mercury. The cheeks of the horn players were swollen like balloons, and everything merged into a deluge of notes, rapid trills, ascending and descending scales so tangled, so inconceivable, that not even demons could have followed their cadence for 2 minutes. It was pitiful to watch the dancers struggle to keep time. They jumped, spun, performed jeté battu and entrechat 3 feet high, until the sweat, running from their foreheads into their eyes, washed away both flies and makeup. The clock struck 1. They stopped. Then I saw a woman who was not dancing. She was seated in a bergère near the fireplace and seemed utterly uninterested in what was happening. Never, not even in dreams, had anything so perfect appeared to me. Skin of dazzling whiteness, ash-blonde hair, long lashes, and blue eyes so clear that I could see her soul in them, as sharp as a pebble at the bottom of a stream. And I felt that, if I were ever to love someone, it would be her. I leapt out of bed, until then unable to move, and approached her, guided by something acting within me that I could not explain. I found myself at her knees, one of her hands in mine, speaking to her as if I had known her for 20 years. My feet burned with the desire to dance. She pointed to the clock hand with her finger. When it reaches there, the hour struck. The voice said, "Angela, you may dance, but you know what will follow." "It doesn't matter," she replied, and wrapped her arm around my neck. "Quickly," cried the voice, and we began to waltz. Never had I felt such emotion. My blood flowed in torrents of lava. The world vanished. But Angela grew tired. Her feet felt like lead. "Let's rest," she said. "There's only one armchair, and we are two. I'll hold you on my lap." Angela sat down, wrapping her arms around me. All my senses were absorbed in the contemplation of that fantastic creature. The real world no longer existed. The lark sang. A pale gleam lingered on the curtains. Angela stood up, let out a cry, and fell. I found nothing but the coffee pot, shattered into 1,000 pieces. I fainted. When I came to, I was in my bed. My friends Arrigo and Pedrino were leaning over me. They told me they had found me unconscious, clutching a fragment of porcelain and dressed in an old wedding suit. Without thinking, I drew the coffee pot. Our host exclaimed, "Incredible how this profile resembles my sister Angela." It was truly her face, sweet and melancholic. "Is she dead or alive?" I asked, trembling. "She is dead, 2 years ago, from a pulmonary congestion after a ball." I understood that there would never again be happiness for me on this earth. Was it just a dream, a feverish hallucination, or something that lingers through time, in places, in objects, in forgotten details? A silver coffee pot, a face drawn from memory, a waltz that no one can hear anymore, yet still vibrates somewhere within the folds of silence. The coffee pot is not just a fantastic tale. It is a threshold, a fragile place where beauty becomes ghost and ghost becomes beauty. Théophile Gautier leaves us suspended between reality and enchantment, between the nostalgia of desire and the terror that everything we love might vanish at dawn. But perhaps the truth lies entirely there, in the warmth of a room, in the crackling of a fireplace, in the smile of someone who is no longer here, and who, for an instant, returns to dance with us.